Hey everyone, welcome back to channel. In today's video we are diving in a classic medium array problem called sort colors. So we are given with the nums array which consists of numbers like 0, 1 and 2, and we have to sort this array in place so that all the zeros comes in the front followed by all the ones and all the twos in the end. So let me take this example here. uh, so we have this example of nums array where numbers are 202 110, and we have to place all the zeros in the front, all the ones in the middle, and all the twos in the end, and this is my answer. Sounds simple, right? So there is a clever trick to do it efficiently without taking any extra space. So let's say I have three variables: count 0, count 1, and count 2. What I will do, I will traverse this nums array and I will count all the zeros, ones and twos, and once I finish taking all the counts from this nums array for zeros, ones and twos, then I will again traverse this nums array and I will run first till this count 0 and place all the zeros uh, till this count, and afterward we are placing all the ones till this count, and afterward we are placing all the twos till this count, and this is the simple solution for this. Let's say if I am here in the start, my number is 2. I will increment by this count 2 by 1. Now I am here. I will increment this count 0 variable by 1, 2. Now it's 2, 1. Now increment this by 1, 2. We have 0, so increment this by 2. So I have count 0, 2, count 1 is equal to 2, and count 2, 2. What I will do, I will again traverse this nums array and I will say, hey, after decrement this count by 1, is it greater than 0 or not? And we are replacing 0 until we are getting 0 for this count 0. Once count 0 is done, then we will place our count 1. With this condition, and once this is done, then rest number will be 2's. So this is simple solution for this. So let's try to code this up. What I will do, I will take three counts: count 0, count 1, and count 2. I will run one loop. I am going to traverse this nums array and I will say, hey, if my current number is 0, then please count 0, increment this by 1. Else if my current number is 1, then I will increment my count 1 variable by 1. Else I will increment my count 2 by 1. So in this way I am able to count all the zeros, ones and twos from this array. And now I will traverse again to this array and I will say, hey, please decrement this count 0 by 1 and check if it is greater than 0. If it is, then we are good to place replace this current number by 0. And once this count 0 is done, then we have to place all the ones. And rest will be 2's, because this array only consists 0, 1 and 2's. And that's it. There's one mistake. Yes, it is working, and however we don't need this to increment this count to, and because once I am filling count 0 and count 1, we don't explicitly need count 2 variable, because rest will be 2's. So let's try to submit this one. Yes, it is working. So let's discuss time complexity for this approach. So I know like I am only traversing twice this nums array. Once I am taking all the counts of 0s, 1s and 2s, and second time I am replacing all the numbers by 0s, 1s and 2s. My term complexity will be big of n, and space complexity will be big of 1, because I am not using any of auxiliary space here. Let's discuss second approach to do this problem more efficiently. And in this problem and in this approach, we are using Dutch national flag algorithm. Let me take one example of nums. We have 202, 11 and 0, and in this nums array what I will do, I will place one mid pointer on the left side, and I will say, hey, if on this mid if there is 2, then I have to shift this 2 on the right side, and if there is 0, then I have to shift this 0 on the left side, and if on this mid if there is 1, then we will do nothing, we will just increment this mid by 1 on the right side. And to do this, what I can do, I can take 2 pointers, high and low, placing on the corner, high on the right side and low on the left side. And why I'm placing this high and low on the corner, because I have to do my swapping operation more efficiently, so that all the zeros comes in the front, all the ones keep in the middle, and all the 2's move to the right. And let's discuss this case by case. Suppose if my mid is 0, let's say this is my low and this is my mid. Suppose there is 0 and on this low I have 1. So what is the first thing I can do? I can say like, hey, just swap these numbers, because I want 0 on this low and 1 come in the middle, this on the mid. First I can do swapping. And low, and then I will say I have to increment this low by 1, because now on this position I have already 0. So let's move this low by 1 to the right, and I can increment this by 1. And I know if on this mid if there is 1, then I have to increment this also mid also by 1 to the right. So this is my observation for 0. Let's take some observation for 1. So what I can say here is, suppose if there is, so on this mid, if there is a number 1 in this array, can say something like this. So what I can do, I have to just increment this mid by 1, because I don't want to send this one on the left or right, because I have to keep this one in the middle, and we have to just increment this mid by 1 and just ignore this one. And if my mid is equal to 2, then suppose on this low, on this mid I have 2, on this low I have 1, on this mid I have 2, and on this high I have 0. So in this case I know, like on this high, on this mid I have 2, and I have to swap this. My first intuition is to swap mid with high. And then what I can do here is, once my swapping is done, I have to move this high to the left by 1 position. I have to decrement this high, and then once my high is here, and on this mid I have 0, but I don't want to increment this mid because I have 0, and I have to check for low also, because on this mid I have already a 0. If I move this by 1, then my 0 is ignored, and I will take care in the next iteration during this, when my mid is equal to 0. So let's solve above example by the below case provided. Let's say this is case 1, this is case 2, and this is case 3. So first I will place my mid and low on the left side and my high on the right. And what I will do, I will say if my on this mid if there is 2, then I will go to case 3 and I will say, hey, just swap this mid with the high, and decrease this high by 1. Now my high is here, and in the second iteration I will say now my mid is equal to 0, so I will swap this mid with the low, and I will increment this low and mid by 1 position to the right. And again I have 0, so I will move this low and mid to the right by 1 position. And on this mid I have now 2. I will say I will first I will swap this 2 with the high. Now this is 1, and in the second in the next iteration now my mid is 1, so I will just ignore this one and move this mid to the right by 1 position. Now my mid is here, I will still ignore this one, and now my mid is here, I will still ignore this and now my mid is here. Once my mid crosses this high, so I can say like my all the numbers are sorted in place. And if you check like in case 1 or in case 2, I am incrementing this mid by 1 position, and in the case 3 I am decrement this high by 1 position. So in any of the case I am actually reducing my sample size by 1, either by incrementing this mid or decrementing this high by 1. So my time complexity for this approach will be big of n, and space complexity will be big of 1, because I am not using any auxiliary space here. And once my mid crosses this high, so this is my boundary case. And yeah, so let's try to code this up. Let's take 3 pointers, low, mid and high. My low should be 0, and my mid should be 0, and my high should be nums dot length minus 1, because I have to take low and mid on the left side and high on the right. It should be the last index. I will take one while loop where I have to define my boundary case. My mid should be less than equal to this high, and I will define my 3 cases here. I will say here, if on this mid, if it is 0, then first I will swap, I will pass my arguments and low. I will increment this low by 1 and mid by 1. Otherwise I will enter the second case, where if my mid is 1, then I will just say please increment this by 1, else I am left with 2. And first I will swap, I will pass my arguments and I will decrement this high by 1. And let's define our swap function here. I have my parameters. My first parameter is nums array, then first index, then this last index j. I will store my first index value on this temp variable, then on this first index I will store my second index value, and on this second index I will again store my first index value, which is stored in the num. And I'm able to swap these numbers, and I'm able to handle all the 3 cases. And there the return type is void. So yeah, I will try to run this code. Let's see. Yeah, it is accepted. Let's try to submit this one, and yes. So if you find this video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment. So thank you guys.